Hey there, we're Talia and Ophira Edut, identical twins and astrologers. Welcome to AstroTwins Radio, where we bring the stars down to Earth.
Question of the week. How do you grow, innovate, change without totally overturning your life and your stability? That's what the stars want us to grapple with this week as 5 planets crowd into Taurus, that rooted fixed sign of the bull, under a sky full of solar storms and coronal mass ejections. And we have not one, but 2 major sun conjunctions this week, which are bold and change-making moments. So we are being simultaneously pulled to stabilize and root into our values and priorities while also being innovative and going out of our comfort zones. Does that sound like a paradox? Even a contradiction to you? Well, if it does, that's because it is. It's Ophi doing this week's podcast from New York, and let's talk about this big week. You thought you were out of the woods. You thought you had gotten off the hook. We had 2 eclipses on March 25th and April 8th. We had Mercury retrograde all April. We had so much change, and we still are in this period where all the planets are clustered in just a few signs. It was Aries, now it's shifted to Taurus. This week we've got 5 planets by the end of the week in Taurus. We start with the Sun, which is the self and kind of the declaration of like, here I am, this is who I am, the ego, the self. We've got Venus, which is love and sensuality. That's nice in Taurus. It's the ruler of Taurus. So if you're feeling poetic and musical and affectionate and romantic, that's a nice balancing one. We've got Jupiter in Taurus and Uranus in Taurus, and they're both meeting up with the Sun. Now, that's a little bit at odds. Jupiter's about growth and taking risks and adventure. Uranus is about change and disruption. Totally at odds with the Taurus agenda, which is about simplifying and systematizing and consistency and repeating and, doing the thing that works over and over again. Totally opposite agendas, but I kind of love when that happens because that's how we grow. We really grow the most from the paradoxes that life and the planets serve up to us on a regular basis, especially here in 2024, it seems. So on Monday, we start with the Sun and Uranus making their once-a-year meetup. So this can be a bit of a hot-headed day. On the positive side, if we use that energy correctly, the heat and the confidence of the Sun with the innovative, trailblazing, pioneering power of Uranus, this could be one of those eureka moment days where your own genius, Uranus is a planet of genius, really shines. You bring that idea out into the open that maybe you've been keeping to yourself. You dare to take a bold risk and disrupt the status quo. That's a positive use of the Sun-Uranus conjunction. Now, and in Taurus, if you hit the right note, that crazy idea might become the new normal. It might become something that actually gets monetized or supported, or someone says, hey, let's make a proposal. Let's give it a try. Let's turn it into something tangible. That's the domain of Taurus. Now, if it doesn't go the way we hope it does, then the egos of both of these planets, the hot-headedness, the volatility, can capsize our comfort zones. We can go too far into the realm of experimental energy and push our agenda even though we don't have people supporting it. We can totally destabilize ourselves and set ourselves back if we try to force something through or become overly rebellious or try to make change in service of our egos instead of the greater good. So think about how a change can take what you've already built to the next level versus tearing everything down and destroying it so that you can do something totally new. It's kind of interesting timing this week that a lot of universities are having graduation ceremonies in the midst of campus protests. I feel like that is the energy of Sun, Uranus, and Taurus right there. Like people wanting change on one side and tradition on another, and being totally unable to talk to each other, hear each other, reconcile. Everybody's just shouting what they believe, being right about it. This is what is a little bit of a danger of a week that has so many planets in Taurus. And when Mercury goes into Taurus on the 15th, then, that is the mouthpiece. Mercury in Aries is already hot-headed enough, but Mercury in Taurus can really dig in its heels. Aries and Taurus are similar in their stubbornness. Just Aries is a fire sign, Taurus is an earth sign. So one is very like outward and fiery, and one is kind of like planting themselves. The Taurus energy is rooting into the earth. Like I will be unmovable, immutable. Aries is just like, I'll just war with you and we'll have a fist fight to see who wins this one. So if Mercury in Taurus does right by us, it'll slow us down, make us more thoughtful and deliberate with our words and thinking. But the shadow side, as there always is a spectrum with every planetary transit, could be that we become more stubborn, more righteous, more set in our ways. And we'll have to see how that one goes. Here's hoping that Venus in Taurus just keeps on coming in and bringing beauty and calm. I mean, make yourself a playlist for this week. Get that massage or do that nice thing to treat yourself and regulate your nervous system, calm yourself down, because there's going to be a lot. The bull, when it's peaceful, is content, but when it's pissed off, it charges. So if you get triggered and go seeing red, that quintuple Taurus energy could find you really charging and then living to regret it, getting your horns stuck into something that maybe you don't want them stuck in. So that's a little warning label on this week, but it's a big one. And that brings us to Jupiter. On May 18th, the Sun and Jupiter come together. Now, this is a day that's also called the Day of Miracles by a lot of astrologers. It's known as one of the most fortunate, lucky, or expansive days of the year. And what I really think of is it's a day of opportunity, a day to make global connections, stretch outside your comfort zone. Jupiter is worldly, it's the ambassador, it's the risk taker, and the Sun adds that extra fuel of confidence. So when the Sun and Jupiter meet up once a year, we tend to go to be optimistic, to believe that we can make those changes, those positive changes in our lives, in the world. If Monday's Sun-Uranus conjunction got you a little too eager and scattered your energy, or, messed up the execution of a good idea, you get another chance with the Sun-Jupiter conjunction, this day of miracles. You may reach across the aisle to try to make sure that the other person really understands what you're suggesting. With the Sun and Uranus together, you don't really care what anyone thinks. You're like, screw it, I'm just gonna do whatever I want and bulldoze on through when they're in Taurus especially. But with the Sun and Jupiter, you're thinking about this big global impact on everyone. How might this person receive my ideas? What about this person? What about that? You're stepping in other people's shoes. And if you're not, then please try to do that, because otherwise you're going to be stepping in your own, well, you know what. It's not shoes, but it starts with the same two letters. So be careful in the week of the bull, because there could be a lot of bull going around. And if you're not sure what to actually buy into this week, just slow down. People will be saying things with a lot of conviction, and you may want to just listen to everyone and take it all in and take a moment to decide. With Mercury having been in Aries, we've all been very quick to speak, to judge, to act. Now is a time to think, let me just find that calm, moderate middle ground in areas where my life feels out of balance. Taurus rules money, so Jupiter is rounding out its year-long visit to Taurus. We have until May 25th. So after the Day of Miracles, we have one more week of Jupiter in Taurus, and then it's not coming back for 12 years. So this whole cycle started May 16th, 2023. And we've been growing in a lot of important ways. So Jupiter can sometimes give us too much of a good thing, but can also help us see things in a new light. So we've certainly seen a global growth of stubbornness and rightness, quote unquote. Jupiter is the global planet, and there's a lot. Jupiter also rules universities and colleges, so no surprise that we have so much happening with protests and global conflicts based in the Middle East, which is a Taurus-ruled region of the world. No surprise at all. Here's hoping that Jupiter's move out of Taurus may bring some middle ground. It's very interesting that Jupiter's leaving Taurus at the end of the school year as well. So Jupiter will be going into Gemini May 25th. Little sneak preview. Jupiter is in detriment, it's called, in Gemini. So it's one of the more uncomfortable places because Jupiter is about big vision and Gemini's kind of narrowing, looking under the microscope, more analytical, where Jupiter is more philosophical. But again, there's a paradox, and in paradox is opportunity. But Gemini is an air sign and Taurus is an earth sign, so I think it's going to lift us out of where we've gotten a little too rooted and anchored and take us into that more cerebral, communicative, dialogue energy of air and Gemini. Gemini is about conversations with each other versus Aries and Taurus just shouting over each other and trying to be right. So I'm hoping that does help more negotiations start to happen in the world, between people, between nations, and anywhere that people have gotten too fixed and set in their ways. So how can you make the most of this week? Well, on Monday, Sun-Uranus conjunction, where has your life started to feel stagnant? Where do you need to do something radical, mix things up a little bit? It doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to, completely capsize things or throw out the baby with the bathwater, that funny phrase. But where could you use just something like completely different, like something that isn't the way you normally operate? Where could you take a chance, take a risk, and dare to share one of your unconventional ideas or traits and be a little quirkier? Where could that actually bring a breath of fresh air to your life, your routines, your work, your family, your relationships? Where could you go out of the box and color outside of the lines to actually create more stability, more authenticity? And with the Day of Miracles on May 18th, where could you look that you haven't even looked? Where could you look beyond what you even think is possible? This is a day when you want to say, you know what? It's not impossible. Nelson Mandela said it's only impossible until it's done. What have you not tried? What are you writing off without even doing a small test of? You don't have to launch the entire idea, but road test it. Question yourself where you're like, it'll never work. Have you tried? Have you even tried a little? Or has it been a while since you tried? Don't be afraid to try again. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's just adding another ingredient that you haven't tried before. For me, I had a fun experience this past week of getting to speak on a panel at the Milken Global Conference. The Milken Institute is a think tank. They had Bill Clinton there giving the closing remarks, even Elon Musk, love him or hate him, giving the opening remarks. World leaders and people from healthcare to politics to climate to AI and tech and innovation all gathering on these fascinating panels to talk about how to shape a shared future. And no surprise, we were the only astrologers there, but it was super cool to be invited into a space. I feel like it was very much an expression of Sun-Uranus for me in Taurus, because the sun is all these leaders, and Uranus rules astrology and innovation and out of left field ideas. And Taurus is very conservative, and, the Milken Institute is pretty established. Michael Milken is a king of junk bonds. That's very Taurus-y, but it was an interesting experience to go into an unexpected space, because the truth is we use our astrology knowledge to work with leaders and CEOs and entrepreneurs and visionaries all the time, and astrology is really helpful. A lot of them, JP Morgan supposedly said that millionaires don't use astrology but billionaires do, and even though that quote is believed to be an urban legend, JP Morgan is known to have worked with the astrologer Evangeline Adams, going yearly for consultations and really studying the mystical and esoteric toward the end of his life, really getting fascinated with it. And I feel like that's a thing that happens for leaders who discover astrology and open their minds, or to what I call spiritual technology, something mystical, something that can't be explained with academics and education and science and data, something that defies quote unquote logic. And I'm certain there were plenty of people at the conference who are not ready to suspend their disbelief and skepticism and even try or open their mind to astrology or plant medicine or meditation or energy. But I'm also pretty sure there were a lot more people there that actually either already do or would or secretly are curious about it or dabble in it. So for me, the Sun-Uranus conjunction in Taurus coincides perfectly with bringing something new to the world of business and leadership, like an astrological system. So maybe you have some part of yourself that you've been holding back or hiding or not sharing because you're afraid people will think it's weird. Well, this is the week to take a chance and experiment with actually showing that or sharing that a little bit. Maybe you don't crank it all the way up to 10. Maybe you do it at a 2 or a 3. But there's a real invitation to do that and take a chance, swing out. Another sometimes it pays off. One of the things that I predicted in our 2024 trend report back in December, if you can listen to that episode back at the beginning of our podcast playlist, was that the Biebers would be having a baby this year. There was something intuitively flashed to me, and I also saw, all right, Saturn is in Hailey Bieber's house of motherhood. It's in Justin Bieber's sign as a Pisces. Saturn is maturity and fatherhood. So I thought, maybe there's going to be a baby bump for the Biebers. And they just announced this week that she's pregnant. So that was a chance that I took, trusting my intuition and just saying it. So there's an invitation from this quintuple Taurus week to really just take a chance, put it out there, and see what happens. Practice just standing in what you believe, what you feel, not in the same combative, controversial way that's dividing people, but in I stand in my truth while also respecting yours. Living in the paradox. This week is full of them. Taurus does not really traffic in paradoxes. It traffics in certainty. But the planets that are in Taurus traffic in change, innovation, looking beyond the familiar and the known, and we're going to have to bring both of those energies together. So I wish you a positive week, the final days of Taurus season and Jupiter in Taurus, and we'll see you next week.
As always, thanks for listening. You can discover more of your star power at astrocell.com and be sure to follow us on social at AstroTwins. Join us next time for more cosmic fun.